Hi, everybody. This is the Michael and Rusty show. First episode. Really excited about this. My name is Rusty Harrison. I'm here with Michael Willoughby. Full disclaimer, I am Michael's uncle, and Michael is here with me today as our first show. Michael, tell the viewers about yourself and what are your plans with our show?
Yes, I'm a journalism graduate of Mohawk College, and I recently completed the Public Relations Graduation Certificate program.
Excellent.
I have been a long time sports fan, the Tiger Cats, Maple Leafs, Hamilton Bulldogs, everything in between. And Hamilton, I've been a long time Hamilton fan all my life. And I have experience writing stuff. I have covered the Tiger Cats from Last Word on Sports, and I have done my own personal blog called the Steel City Express. And I also done work for A9 Radio at Mohawk College, and I've wrote articles as part of the journalism program. And yeah, I've been a lot of all around experience. And in addition to that, I have worked in the Pan Am Games in Toronto and Hamilton in 2015. I have did Grey Cups in back-to-back years in 2016, 2017. And then I have been doing the odd events around Hamilton, and it's been quite a ride for me, especially the last 15 years.
Okay, cool, excellent. I'm an old man. I'm also originally from Hamilton. I'm now in the province of Quebec. I have a degree in history at McMaster University. And I also am a sports fan, although I'm not a Toronto Maple Leaf fan, but that happens. And this is going to be our first episode today, and hopefully we will entertain you. And let's proceed. So the first item is a review of the CFL Week 1, which had 4 games on the slate. I'm going to briefly go through it with just a recap very quickly of each game, and then we're going to open it up for discussion. First of all, on Thursday, we had the Montreal Alouettes and the Calgary Stampeders in Calgary. It was Calgary 30, Montreal 27 as a final. Rene Paredes hit a field goal with 29 seconds left as the Stamps won their home opener. The big news in terms of the Alouettes was the loss of William Steinbach for multiple weeks. He had a fractured ankle injury, and he's had surgery on it. He's on the 6-game injury list, and hopefully he can come back at the later part of the season. On Friday, we had Ottawa and Winnipeg in Winnipeg. Winnipeg winning 19-17. Mark Legio's 27-yard field goal with 29 seconds left won the game for the Blue Bombers. And of note for Ottawa was Jeremiah Mazzoli passing for 380 yards in his first game as a Red-Black starter. Mazzoli, of course, being the former Tiger Cat quarterback who was an MVP for the Tiger Cat team. On Saturday, which we both watched, I believe, Saskatchewan won 30-13 over Hamilton in Saskatchewan. In a game that was a defensive struggle through 3 quarters, Saskatchewan then basically went off, beating the Ticats by 17 at the end. We do that. Rider QB Cody Fajardo threw for 311 yards passing, while Dane Evans responded with 222 yards through the air. And finally, late Saturday night, we had BC 59, Edmonton 15. The game was at BC Place in Vancouver. The Lions blasted the Elks with Nathan Rourke going 26 for 28 with 282 yards and 3 touchdowns in his debut as the BC starter, replacing, of course, the retired Michael Riley. Nick Arbuckle went 20 for 29, throwing 3 interceptions for the Elks, while BC's James Butler ran for 108 yards on 17 carries and 2 touchdowns. It's safe to say that Chris Jones' rebuilding job as the Elks head coach is going to be a big one. Generally, I felt that the rule change to make the hash marks 9 yards across from the old 17-yard standard is going to open up the passing game considerably. Teams are going to be able to involve receivers on both sides of the scrimmage more. I really thought that it gave a new dynamic to the passing game. So, Michael, what do you think of the first week and your general thoughts on the league so far?
Well, the first week of the regular season, it has come to no surprise that that Winnipeg find a way to win the game, especially with Zach Caleros in the helm. And the biggest surprise for me was the way that the BC Edmonton game went down. It was 59-15, I believe, like you said. And I looked into the game highlights, and Edmonton has ways and ways to go to become relevant. There is no doubt in my mind Edmonton is on a long road back to the season. Even though when you have Chris Jones, who is a lot with his accolades, I just think Edmonton needs to basically step up the season. But they have a lot of issues to address, especially at a quarterback like Nick Arbuckle, who will have to go the grind this season. Given the fact that what happened when he was in Toronto, he's now given the primary controls rather than you're looking at a shoulder like McLeod back to Thompson back in Toronto, which ultimately the latter took over the role towards the end of the season. I just think Edmonton is in for the long overhaul. And we also look into Hamilton for stacking, and I cannot believe on social media. I've looked on Facebook, I've looked on Twitter, and they're starting to write off Hamilton
after one game.
Yeah, after one game, and there's an old saying that you cannot. You can try to help me out, Uncle Russ, but there's an old saying that say you can't put all hatches in one basket, or let alone move them, because Coach Orlando Steiner, who has taken this team to 2 Grey Cups in a row, you got to give Hamilton, the Ticats, the opportunity to respond, and rather than making a swift judgment,
Yeah, I've always found the Tirecat fan base, and I think we include each other as fans in that, as incredibly knee-jerk and reflexive at times, especially when the team gets off to slow starts. And historically, the Tirecats have done this a lot. My problem with the game as I saw it was that there just simply wasn't enough continuity offensively, moving the chains on a sustained basis. there wasn't a lot of rushing yards, as I recall. And apart from Dane Evans hitting, who was it? It was, I believe it was Dunbar, right? On a
Yeah,
long touchdown.
75
71-yard, I think it was a 71-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter, there wasn't really a quick strike play that compensated for the fact that they could not move the ball on a sustained level. And the Hamilton defense played extremely well, as did Saskatchewan's for over 3 quarters. I believe it was 9-6 for Saskatchewan at the end of the third quarter. So for me, I found it really, really strange from just cursory describing what I saw that you mentioned, that people were really jumping to conclusions. I mean, I'm not surprised, because like last year we had the same situation because of the slow start, the 2 losses in Winnipeg and in Saskatchewan, and it was the same deal. So it's a long season. It's going to be 18 games, as a regular CFL season usually is. And so I fully expect that, this is a very, very early stage. I mean, the three Eastern teams, in fact, all lost. So to suggest that, let's end the season right here, I mean, it's way off, I think.
Yeah, and also a few more notes. I'm friends with a Toronto Argonaut fan, and he sarcastically proclaimed that they should have the season wrapped up now, because Toronto is winning the East, because Toronto did not play this week.
Yeah.
And but you said it's going to be a long grind of 18 weeks. Let's just say in total, in length for 21 weeks, because you got all 9 clubs are getting at least 2 weeks each for buys.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a really compelling week. But thank goodness we have an 18-week season, 18-game season.
It's a marathon.
Yeah.
It's truly a marathon. And not only that, I think that if we look at, how the CFL is basically structured, it does take teams quite a number of weeks at the start of each season to really gel. And if you look at, as an example, the Ticats wide receiving core, we had many changes. I mean, we lost Brandon Banks to the Argonauts. We had Acklin. He went to Ottawa with Jeremiah Mazzoli. We have a lot of young players coming into the lineup, and like we only have Dunbar, I think, with the most experience on the team. Am I right? I think so.
Yeah, and also you have Tim White, and you have
we have Poppy White too.
Poppy
Poppy White is best known as a return specialist for the team that we saw last year. So I don't know how long it's going to take for them to adjust to a regular shift in the offense, but I think it's problematic to simply take the first week and then proclaim that your team is going to win, or vice versa. As someone who grew up in Southern Ontario, I mean, I think it's safe to say that we've seen a lot of professional teams, proclaim themselves champions, whether it be, in October in hockey or early in the summer in the CFL, and it's not helpful. It is a process. And, there are going to be injuries. There's going to be, shifts in fortunes. And it's going to be an interesting season, just for the fact that I believe that the East is going to be far stronger, it's going to take some time. So we'll see how.
And I hope to have a very good season all across the board, because the league definitely needs it.
Yeah.
That it's been too long when you have the full 18 game season.
Yeah.
It's been like since 2019, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
to me, and to be blunt, I think it's a miracle that we're in this situation, that the league can actually get back on its feet, and the CFL agreement with the CFLPA, I think, is crucial to that. Historically, the league and the CFLPA have not had long work stoppages, and this year was little different. But the fact that the CFLPA actually voted to strike and actually rejected the first negotiated proposal, to me, was an indication that players are trying to recoup what they've lost through the pandemic, and the CFL had to actually come forward with new proposals in terms of the ratio. And I think that was important for the league to do, because if we had gone through a prolonged strike, I think it would be devastating for the league. So I'm glad that there's some stability in that respect.
Yeah, I want to wish William Steinbach speedy recovery. That was a very rough injury that he suffered in the season opener, and also there was no surprise that Jeremiah Masoli, given the fact that he produced a lot of 300-yard passing games, getting explosive in a debut, and having Jalen Ackland have been very familiar with how Masoli throws the ball. It's going to be a very dynamic duo, quarterback wide receiver duo in the CFL.
I'm scared of playing the Red Blacks. And when I say we, of course, I'm talking about Hamilton, because I think we've already talked that we're fans of the team for ages. But I'm using the royal we, of course. I think that Mazzoli is a dynamic quarterback when he's on. I think he can be hot and cold, more than other quarterbacks in the league. But when he's red hot, he's elite, and kind of reminds me of Henry Burris in that respect, Mm-hmm. But in terms of just sheer ability, I mean, there's no question that Ottawa has upgraded a great deal, particularly on the offense. And we'll see what happens. Mm-hmm. The Alouettes, of course, they believe that they have the depth to stay in the race until Stanback comes back. But I think with Vernon Adams Jr., I think they have a very, very good quarterback as well. The thing about the league in general, I think that people will agree on this, is that the vast majority of teams have established starters. You could argue that Nathan Rourke in BC is new, but I think he's shown flashes, and particularly like last night, he was dynamite. Everybody can compete in this league. Like for me, the biggest issue is whether Calgary can recover from the slump that they've been in for the last couple of years, mainly because of Bo Levi Mitchell being injured a lot. When Bo's on, he's the MVP of the league. His track record has been amazing. In many respects, it's like Ricky Ray's run with the Argonauts. That's an example. But I just don't see a team that you could write off right away. Last year, I could say that with Ottawa in particular, Edmonton did not stay in contention that long. I think Edmonton has potential, but Chris Jones plays a very risky defense. Who do you think has the best defense right now in the league?
Even though we should not declare it after the first week of the season, Hamilton does have the a big as a pretty good defense, especially the addition of Darby, and then you got Ottawa was a revamped defense after what happened last year. So yeah, Ottawa's pretty good. Hamilton's right up there. Saskatchewan, I think, is going to be will be pretty good, but yeah, it is too tough to tell after 1 week. So I think it will be a better analysis in the next coming weeks or so, when basically everybody is square.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick note. I didn't start with this, but if you like what you're hearing and you'd like to continue to follow our show, please join the channel, hit the like button, subscribe, and we will continue to have content on the CFL and other sports leagues. Hi, everybody. This is the Michael and Rusty Show. We're going to talk now about the recent OHL final in Canadian Junior Hockey, the Ontario Hockey League, with the Hamilton Bulldogs taking on the Windsor Spitfires. Now, I've watched a couple of the games completely, so I believe Michael probably has more knowledge of what's been going on, so he can tell us about it. Michael.
Well, let's just say the OHL season as a whole was a really gritty. I just lost adjectives about the OHL season. It was, I used to say, it's a grind. It was a grind of the season. There was a lot of games that had to be postponed due to one team or both teams had COVID. In the case of Hamilton, it only affected them in the holiday and into the early start of New Year. And I think it was like 3 weeks. So a matter of about 6 or 7 games that had to make up when the commissioner, David Branch, announced it, I believe it was in February, that the season was going to extend into like late April into early May. And it was a very defiant season. It was a really trying one. And the problem we had at the schedule, and it's understandable because of the COVID situation, bestowed upon all of them before the start of the season, was most games were playing within the conference. In Hamilton's case, they play in the East and Windsor play in the West. There was no team in Hamilton's caliber that they faced throughout the season. An exception to Erie, of course, but Erie was like an up-and-coming team. And case in point, back in the early end of the season, at the regular season finale in Erie, Hamilton just wiped Erie off the map in a game that Erie was supposed to win.
The team in Erie is the Erie Otters?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, formerly known as the Hamilton Fin Cups back in the day. For those of you long-time origin.
Back in my day.
Yeah. And it was the Niagara Falls Thunder and Hamilton Steelhawks, etc.
Right.
But back into the present day, yeah, Erie in a game that they were supposed to have, Erie just did not have it, and it sucks to be them.
Right.
But anywho, Hamilton just completely wiped everybody off the map in the first round with Peterborough, the second round with Mississauga, a team that since we're talking about teams here in the OHL, the Mississauga Steelheads, I used to work with them as an intern.
Okay.
In the communications department. So I was in charge of doing game day stats and game day articles. Like
that was for the last season, right?
Yeah, this past season. Yeah.
Okay.
I covered like close to 30 games with the team. So that's a quick bit of my occupation back in the fall.
Okay.
So yeah, Mississauga with the defense they had, I thought they were going to give Hamilton fits, but despite Mississauga's best efforts, Hamilton swept them off the map in 4 games. And I attended game 3 there. And going to North Bay, they thought it was a tough challenge because North Bay was doing really well in the first 2 rounds. And then all of a sudden, Hamilton just overpowered North Bay, and it was so bad that Joe Babettic, the goaltender of the battalion of North Bay, because formerly of Brampton, by the way, for those of you who are longtime Brampton Mississauga fans, Babettic did not do too badly, but it was the matter of confidence, and they went to DeVincentis, I believe that was the name of the guy, but it didn't change anything, even though it was a valiant effort by the battalion in game 3. They couldn't get the job done. In game 4, they just got blanked 6-0 by Hamilton. So that is like a bit of a rundown of the playoffs that far. And then going to the OHL championship, Windsor escaped the OHL East Western final, the skin of the teeth with Flint, because Flint went toe-to-toe. And in fact, they were 9.5 minutes away in game 6 to win the Western Conference Championship, but Windsor scored 2 late goals and going 1 in overtime to force game 7. And of course, Windsor blanked a really defiant, a very defiant Flint Firebird squad. Luke Camelin, who has now signed a contract with the Toronto Marlies, with the work that he done over the playoffs there. But the Windsor Spitfires were offensively gifted. They got a lot of good players like Johnston and Coley and Maggio, amongst others. And you had a goaltender that's running on a hot platter right now in Mateus Onska.
He's been amazing in the final.
Yeah, he has been stellar. And
has he been drafted?
I don't believe so.
Because if somebody drafts him, they could have a steal.
Yeah.
Like, he's been just off the charts. I mean, there have been so many odd man rushes in that series. It's just been fire wagon hockey, really wide open, a lot of skill, and Anushka's been just amazing. Really, I think Hamilton, this is the main challenge that I've seen so far this year from how much I've followed the league from where I'm based here in Quebec. One thing I wanted to ask you, though, sorry to interrupt you earlier, but I thought it'd be important just to mention that goalie in particular. But Shane Wright, of course, is the prospective first-round draft pick overall by Montreal in the upcoming draft in July in the NHL. Tell me about your reflections on him, and I know that Kingston did play Hamilton in the East semifinal, or the East final, I should say. What do you think of Shane Wright and his prospects?
Well, Shane Wright is an excellent player, but the problem was he had too many let's just say too much expectations
Okay.
bestowed upon him at the beginning of the season. He was a consensus number one pick, and he was not. Okay, what did you say back in? It was a 50. He was an exemption player,
Right.
Exemption status couple seasons back, and he was supposed to be the next Connor McDavid.
Right.
But the thing is, he is as good as he is. I don't think he is as big as McDavid, but he's going to be a really good player.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
And sorry, just to add on, Kingston had a lot of good players surrounding, right? Especially Lucas Emmons, who was it was incredible how Emmons performed, even for a rookie that is 20 years old.
Yeah.
20 years old.
Like they were rock bottom, as I recall, in the league. And they have completely changed their fortunes in the last year. And they have a very bright future, I think, in Kingston. What I was surprised with is I think you're correct in identifying some of the hype around Shane Wright. I believe he's an excellent prospect. I see him as an incredible complement to Nick Suzuki as a center in Montreal. Plays a really smart two-way game. I've heard some comparisons to being a potential young Patrice Bergeron, the legendary player for Boston. I think it's a little too early to go that far, but I think that he has a really, really solid game, and I think he's one of those guys that, with luck and hard work, I think he's going to develop into a solid NHL player regardless. I think he's one of those guys that you could say is can't miss in terms of his potential as being an impact top six guy. I don't think he's going to be head and shoulders a generational player. I think that what you said about Connor McDavid is totally accurate. Connor McDavid is one of those guys that you look at and he comes around once in a decade, if not once in a generation. I mean, I think that you could say he's the most impactful center since Sidney Crosby. You could argue that.
Yeah.
And he is obviously right now the consensus MVP, I would argue. But you look at what you see with Connor Bedard next year. This guy has been touted as a generational talent. What do you know of Connor Bedard, and how do you see that prospect shaping up in the next few years?
Well, to be fair, I have not followed a whole ton of the WHL,
right?
But I heard a lot of the conversation about Bedard, and I have watched one game in particular when he was playing, and he's going to be a really special player.
Yeah. He's
going to be a really good player for whoever he is going to be being drafted for next year.
Yeah.
But it's going to be interesting to see how he's going to develop for next season, because I think he and his team, I think it's the Regina Pats, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yes.
It looks like Regina's going to probably, if any trend is speculated throughout the CHL, a team that is not as good in the first 2 years will get elevated up with great draft stock and stuff. Like look what Hamilton had in the first 3 years. They went from literally within a cusp of making the playoffs to basically winning the OHL championship in less than 36 months.
Right.
So yeah, it's for Bedard is going to be a very, very interesting year. I think he's going to blow the WHL off with a phenomenal season next year.
At the time of taping, we're going into Game 7 of the OHL final. What's your prediction? And don't be too biased because I know you like the Bulldogs.
Well, I would say this after the series that he had, the Bulldogs and Spitfires, from an offensive standpoint, are evenly matched. As much as a lot of Bulldog fans, or some, I should say, who was avid followers of the team would be cringed to hear this, but yeah, the Spitfires is just as good offense as Hamilton's. But I think Hamilton's a more complete team, especially with the defense. I understand that Colin Cameron is not going to be playing anymore because he injured his leg earlier in the series. So, and then also you got Nathan Staios, Alba Jacki, Autumn Gruneshikov, who plays it in Dallas. Jacki, of course, is a signee of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yes.
And then you have like Van Leed and Donovan and Gavin White, who I met the guy, and he's such a good guy.
Yeah.
And then you go on the forwards. Yeah, anybody can score like 15, 20 goals a season, especially Bijak, who was also a draft pick of the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah.
And then you have Ryan Winterton, who missed a half a season and was lights out in second half. And then you got not just the trade deadline acquisition of Jacki, but also you had Mason McTavish.
Yeah, and he this guy is a sniper.
Yeah, this guy is as a sharpshooter. The guy's a beast.
Yeah, and I know that Anaheim is salivating at having that guy full-time in their lineup as soon as possible because for me, he's just got elite skill. He knows where to go in the offensive zone. He just gets into those greasy areas, and his shot, it's top level. I mean, I don't know in junior hockey, I don't follow it as much obviously as you do, but this guy just he has an absolute howitzer for a wrist shot, and I think that this guy is like a surefire 40-goal scorer.
Yeah,
so I really hope that it's a great game, Game 7. Regardless, it's in Hamilton tomorrow night, Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Which is June 13th, incidentally, for those of you following. But,
yeah, and I just want to make a quick prediction as promised. I just think the Bulldogs are going to compound on the defense of Windsor and do not go tired and don't make stupid penalties because the look at the Bulldogs right now after Game 6, and I watched like literally the third period because I was preoccupied like doing work and stuff. So I watched the highlights and I watched Game 7 with my friends in like the third period, and they're just tired and the game beating up. But
I sense that too. I just can't believe how good the Bulldogs have been in the games that I've seen, and I've seen 3 of them in the playoffs so far. Just how good they are at open ice hitting.
Yes.
Nathan Staios in particular, when he decides to creep in from the blue line, I'm a Detroit Red Wing fan. It's reminiscent of Nicholas Cronwall. You hear the Jaws music because he doesn't go charging into the guy. He just gently glides and he just explodes into whoever's in front of him. And, Windsor, they're a clutch team, I think. But I think that Anushka is he is the wild card here, because I think he's outplayed Constantini at times during the series. And I really do think that he gives them an edge if he's on. So
Constantini has been outstanding throughout for most of the year. Even when Constantini had his struggles, Mateo Drobek has stepped up, and he has done won 18, 19 games of the season. They could have literally had two goaltenders, Constantini and Drobek in Hamilton, getting 20 wins each. That's how good that Bulldogs were throughout the season. And also to point it out that, I think it's a toss-up between Windsor's offense and Hamilton's morale, because they're getting banged up, as I mentioned. Winterton is a little shaken up. Stales is not close to 100% from what I know. Bijak has had shoulder problems throughout the year, throughout the much of the playoffs. I just think this is going to be the war in nutrition. If Hamilton does put a lot of shots and made Onuska uncomfortable, let alone rattled, I think this is going to be Hamilton 4-2 win. But Windsor is going to be a tough out, because we're in game one in the OHL final. They came back from 3-1 deficit, and in game two they almost stole game two, despite the fact they were down 5-2, I believe, 4-1, 5-2 in the third period, and they staged a late comeback. And Windsor is a very prolific offense. They can turn it on in a flash, especially.
What's D'Amico's first name?
Daniel D'Amico.
Daniel D'Amico. He's a winger, right?
Yes.
He is extremely sandpapery, if that's a verb or a noun, or even an adjective. I believe that would be sandpapery. He is extremely. I think his hockey sense is phenomenal. Like, he just, every shift, he knows how to insert his presence. Very, very good defensively, and a lot of energy. So he's a guy to watch for them. If you had to pick a guy to score the winning goal in that game coming up, who would it be for each team?
Well, for Hamilton, I think it's going to be Mason McTavish, and for Windsor, I think it's going to be Curley, because this is definitely going to be like the last OHL game for both of them, and for a good portion for both the players from both teams.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of turnover, right?
Yeah. But I think Hamilton, if you're looking at the future, is not going to be as bad in defense as it was when they won the last championship in 2018, because it was a huge defensive turnover. Hamilton, to their credit, has preserved a lot of good players on the defense and played a lot of games in the season, and some in the playoffs with Van Leet, as mentioned, and Donovan and Moore in the rotation. They had with the injuries of Stales, as I mentioned, and Camero. But it is going to be a very interesting contest. From what I know at the time of recording, they have just released the seats open to the upper bowl of First Ontario Center. Well, a good 80 plus or 90% of the lower bowl has all been filled. So it's going to be up to 10,000, if not more than that.
Wow, that's great.
So I'm definitely looking forward to the game tomorrow.
And we will talk about it in a future episode. We have the Memorial Cup next weekend, starting June 20th in St. John, New Brunswick. So the winner of that game between Hamilton and Windsor will enter into that tournament, and we can talk about it later. So,
yeah.
All right. Moving on quickly, the final thing I wanted to cover in our discussions today is the Deshaun Watson situation. As people will know, the Cleveland Brown quarterback, who was signed to a record guaranteed salary of $240 million over the next 5 years.
Yeah, it is.
He, of course, is facing 24 lawsuits in the state of Texas for alleged sexual assault and sexual misconduct with 24 women. And there was recently a New York Times article which suggests that he actually had 66 different massage therapists in sessions over a 17-month period. So people have been talking about the definite public relations fallout of this, let alone the morality questions. We have a lot of people arguing that because he was not found to be worthy of an indictment by 2 grand juries in Texas, that he hasn't been charged with anything, that the NFL should just simply let the legal process play out. But there's recently been an HBO documentary, as well as this article that came out in the New York Times last week, that suggests that, in fact, you're going to have the possibility of even more people coming forward. So what is your opinion on the current situation? I have mine, but I want to hear yours first.
Well, a lot of people would know me in the last few years. I have followed the Cleveland Browns to a T. I am a member of the Toronto Browns backers, who are the largest booster club in the country of the Great White North. And I have followed the Deshaun Watson from that Facebook page they have. And Deshaun Watson, there's a thing called innocent until proven guilty. He has denied any wrongdoing to a T. And yeah, the commissioner is having a really tough decision right now. Can he suspend Watson indefinitely? But it is difficult to say which side it is more prudent than anything else in terms of the allegations. And Deshaun Watson, he's going to have to basically take a seat and tackle with the allegations, additional allegations head on.
Sorry to interrupt, but I've heard so much talk on this subject on YouTube and Twitter, throughout social media. And you have this idea that maybe we're looking at, a 6-game or an 8-game suspension as a minimum. But these last 2 lawsuits have come out in the last 2 weeks. Actually, I thought last 10 days. So the question to me is, with many camps opening, I believe, later this week, and we're taping this on June 12th. So I think it's either Thursday or Friday. It's a 3-day minicamp for the Browns. The league is going to have to seriously consider whether to put Deshaun Watson on the reserve / commissioner's exempt list, which allows the commissioner wide powers to put a player on the list to essentially deactivate him until such time as the league is satisfied with the changing of the optics of the situation, so that the player can come back at a time where any legal problems, any off the field issues are addressed.
Yeah.
I think that the league is going to have to do this because it's just going to be an absolute nightmare for the Browns, and I would say for the Browns fans too. They've been put in a really tough situation, having to defend someone who, quite frankly, has been put into their midst as a dynamic quarterback on the field, but as someone who, at the minimum, has engaged in activity that many find predatory, just by a lot of the depositions that we've had access to online. So, I agree with you that certainly he's innocent until proven guilty, in a criminal sense. But in the court of public opinion, it's an absolute nightmare. We have never seen an athlete with 66 different massage therapists, and you have at least three occasions where defense lawyer Rusty Hardin has admitted that these situations became sexual, consensually sexual. So I agree with you in terms of, he has to be given the benefit of the doubt on a criminal level, but I don't in terms of just the optics of the situation. I just don't, if it's more than one, then you have to think about it. If it's more than 10, if it's more than 15, and now we have this issue of 66 in terms of the overall number of therapists, it's sad. It's sad for the league. It's a sad situation, particularly for people who have admired him, and it's disappointing for everyone, I think.
Yeah, he's like I said, he's a dynamic player, and I always liked seeing him playing, and all the specials they have, NFL films about him and his family and all his things. He turned out to be a decent person, but now these days, even with people being decent, it is messed up. It's really messed up.
So many of the women who have come forward, have described the fact that they were massage therapists, many of them. He went on Instagram, he went, on social media to try to, procure their services. And I think that the problem for many people is that, and I think Mike Florio on his podcast, Pro Football Talk, that I watch a lot, has been really good on this. The fact that, most athletes, you have 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 different therapists that you trust with your body. You get massages to recuperate from stressful injuries and just the impact of a contact sport. And the fact is that this is it seemed that he was cycling through Instagram to get massages with the hope of maybe something more happening during these sessions.
In Houston, it has been turned out in the recent report that Houston Texans gave permission and leeway for Watson to go to these massage therapists.
They gave him an NDA, and I believe it was the head of security. Now, who needs an NDA for a massage therapy session? I can see if you have a family and you want to have privacy, if you have the therapist go to your home or your place of your abode where you live, in cases where you want to have their privacy respected in particular. But for someone to just simply have this idea of a blanket NDA for massage therapists to sign, I mean, to me, that's unheard of. The Texans, in fact, had a hotel room that I believe the hotel is called the Houstonian, and it was being used for players to recover from COVID isolation. And Watson apparently used this in several instances. So the team itself had to, do more diligence, I think, in terms of how that hotel room was being used. I think that's fair to say. And I just have a huge problem with the fact that the Cleveland Browns gave this guy so much money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a guaranteed contract. It's unprecedented in the history of the NFL to give any player a guaranteed contract of that magnitude. And yet they never bothered to talk to any of the alleged victims, the women that actually gave, that actually brought forward lawsuits.
Yeah, it's the due diligence part that the Browns did not do.
For me, that is the big smoking gun here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he's a compelling player. You could argue that in the last few years, he's been in the top 5 of NFL players, let alone quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But he is, in my opinion, right now, a liability for that team, just because of the scrutiny, because this guy has to settle his cases. He has to give restitution to these victims, these people who have been aggrieved, and he has to get on with his life, I think. And the fact that these cases, I mean, we're talking probably 2 years and up in terms of actually having all these cases go to trial. It's insane. I mean, you can't do this to your team. You can't do this to your fans either, I would argue.
Long-suffering fan base. Been 57 years since they last won.
I don't know if you were even born, Michael.
Yeah.
When the Cleveland Browns won a playoff game, let alone got to the conference final, the AFC final. It's just it's been a history. I think it's been called the factory of sorrow.
Yeah, that factory of sadness.
Yeah, it's a factory of sadness. Sorry, yes. So, we'll be covering the story as it continues, but I really think that we try to be fair, I think, as fans and as observers, but it's a disastrous situation for the entire league, I would argue, in terms of just optics. You have what's going on with Daniel Snyder in Washington, and even Mark Davis in Las Vegas. There have been accusations of misconduct. So we'll see what happens in this. Thank you for your time, Michael.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I'd just like to, invite people to, subscribe to the channel as we go forward, and hope to talk to you again soon.